I used to think the worst thing about insomnia was the exhaustion, the way it hollowed you out from the inside, leaving you a shell of yourself stumbling through days that blurred together like wet paint. But I was wrong. The worst thing about insomnia is what you notice in those dead hours when the rest of the world sleeps. The things you can't unsee, the patterns you can't ignore, like the knocking that started exactly 3 weeks after my daughter stopped coming home. Every single night. 2:33 a.m., 3 deliberate knocks, and when I finally worked up the courage to open the door on the 7th night, there was nothing there but a child's red mitten lying on my doormat. The same kind Emma used to wear, the kind she was wearing the day she disappeared. The detective assigned to Emma's case told me that most missing children are found within 48 hours. After that, the statistics become brutal. After 3 weeks, they stop saying statistics at all. They just look at you with those pitying eyes that tell you everything you need to know about hope and how quickly it dies in this world. Detective Morrison was kind enough, I suppose. She had a daughter, too. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened when she looked at Emma's photo on my mantel, the professional mask slipping just enough to reveal the parent underneath, imagining her own worst nightmare. Emma was 7 years old. Is 7 years old. Present tense. I have to keep reminding myself. She had just lost her second front tooth and was obsessed with collecting smooth rocks from the park. She'd line them up on the windowsill in her bedroom according to size, smallest to largest, and she'd tell me stories about each one. That one was a dinosaur egg, that one was a fallen star, that one was a giant's tear, frozen in time. She had my late husband's imagination and my stubbornness, which meant bedtime was always a negotiation that I pretended to hate but secretly cherished. The day she vanished was unremarkable in every way except for how it ended. I picked her up from school at 3:15, same as always. She showed me a drawing she'd made in art class, a house with a purple door and a sun with a smiling face. We stopped at the grocery store. She asked for the cereal with the cartoon tiger on the box. I said yes, because I always said yes to the small things, saving my nose for what I thought were the important battles. How do you live with yourself when you realize you wasted your nose on things that didn't matter at all? We got home at 4:30. I let her watch her favorite show while I started dinner, chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs because she was going through a paleontology phase. At 5:45, I called her for dinner. She didn't answer. I called again, annoyed now because the nuggets were getting cold. Still nothing. I walked into the living room and found the television still playing to an empty couch. Her shoes were by the door, her backpack was in the hallway, but Emma was gone. The window in her bedroom was open, just 6 inches. Enough for the autumn air to slip through. Not enough for a 7-year-old girl to climb out. Except Emma wasn't in her bedroom. She wasn't anywhere. I searched every room, every closet, under every bed, calling her name with increasing panic until my voice went hoarse. I checked the backyard, the front yard, ran up and down the street in my bare feet, asking neighbors if they'd seen her. Mrs. Chen from next door called the police while I tore through the house again, certain I'd missed something, certain she had to be there because the alternative was impossible. The police came. They asked their questions with careful voices. Had Emma been upset about anything? Had there been any arguments? Did she have a history of running away? No, and absolutely not. Emma was happy. We were happy. Our life wasn't perfect, but whose is? We were still healing from losing David 2 years ago, but we were healing together. We had routines and rituals, Friday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes. We were okay. We were going to be okay. They searched the house. They searched the neighborhood. They brought in dogs that lost her scent at the end of our driveway. It was as if she'd simply evaporated into the autumn air. Detective Morrison explained about endangered missing child alerts, about how they did circulate her photo, about how most children are taken by people they know. She asked about David's family, about my family, about friends and teachers and coaches. She asked everything except the one question that mattered: where is my daughter? The first week was a blur of police interviews, news cameras, volunteer search parties, and fluorescent-lit community centers plastered with Emma's face. I became a fixture on the local news. The grieving mother, they called me, though I corrected them every time. Not grieving, searching, there's a difference. Grief implies an ending, and this wasn't over. This couldn't be over. The second week, the news crews left. The volunteer searches became smaller, then stopped altogether. People had to get back to their lives. I understood, even though I hated them for it, How dare they sleep and eat and laugh when Emma was out there somewhere? How dare the world keep spinning? The third week, I stopped sleeping. Not consciously at first. I'd lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, running through every moment of that day, searching for the clue I'd missed, the detail that would unlock everything. Was it someone at the grocery store? Someone from school? Had I seen a suspicious car and not registered it? My mind became a horror show of possibilities, each one worse than the last. So I stopped trying to sleep. I'd sit in Emma's room instead, surrounded by her rocks and her drawings and her stuffed animals, waiting for an answer that never came. That's when the knocking started. The first night I thought I'd imagined it, 3 sharp knocks, deliberate and spaced evenly apart. I was sitting in Emma's room, holding the stuffed rabbit she'd slept with since she was a baby, when I heard it. My whole body went rigid. For a moment I was frozen, caught between hope and terror. Then I ran. I flew down the stairs and threw open the front door so hard it bounced off the wall. Nothing. Just the empty street bathed in the orange glow of street lights. I stood there in the doorway, my heart hammering, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The October wind cut through my thin t-shirt, but I barely felt it. I walked out onto the front path, looking left and right, calling Emma's name into the night. Mrs. Chen's porch light came on. I didn't care. I called again and again until my voice cracked. When I finally went back inside, shaking from cold and adrenaline, I told myself it was the house settling. Old pipes, a branch against the siding. I almost believed it. The second night, same time. I checked my phone when it happened. 2:33 a.m. 3 knocks, identical to the night before. This time I was ready. I'd positioned myself on the couch with a clear view of the front door, and I moved the instant I heard the sound. I yanked the door open within seconds of the third knock. Nothing, nobody, but this time I noticed something. The wind chimes on Mrs. Chen's porch were perfectly still. No wind. And yet I'd heard the knocking clear as day. The third night, I stood behind the door before 2:33, my hand on the knob, ready. When the knocking came, I threw it open mid-knock. Still nothing, but I heard something else. Footsteps, light and quick, running away. I chased the sound into the darkness, running down the sidewalk in my bare feet, following what might have been footsteps or might have been my desperate imagination. I lost the sound at the corner. I stood there in the middle of the intersection, spinning in circles, and that's when I realized how completely I was unraveling. I was chasing ghosts at 2:33 in the morning because the alternative was admitting that I was helpless, that Emma was gone and I couldn't save her. Detective Morrison suggested I see someone. A therapist. She said it gently, with genuine concern, but I heard what she wasn't saying. She thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But the knocking was real. I knew it was real. The 4th, 5th, and 6th nights, the pattern continued. 3 knocks at 2:33 a.m., nothing at the door. I started recording video, but the camera showed nothing. Just an empty doorstep and the sound of knocking with no source. I posted about it in online forums for parents of missing children. Some people shared their own experiences with signs and symbols they believed were their children reaching out. Others worried I was having a breakdown. Maybe they were all right. On the 7th night, I opened the door to find the red mitten. It was lying in the center of the doormat, perfectly placed, as if someone had set it there with care. My knees buckled. I caught myself on the doorframe, unable to breathe, unable to think beyond the single thought that cycloned through my mind. Emma's mitten. I knew it was hers. I knew it with the same certainty that I knew my own name. It had a small stain on the thumb from hot chocolate, still visible even in the porch light. Emma had been wearing her red mittens the day she disappeared. Both of them. The police had documented it in their report. Red wool mittens with white snowflakes, homemade by David's mother before she passed. There was only one pair in existence. I grabbed the mitten with shaking hands and pulled it against my chest. It smelled like autumn leaves and something else, something wrong that I couldn't identify. I looked out into the darkness, and for the first time I didn't call Emma's name. Instead, I spoke to whoever, whatever, was doing this. "What do you want?" My voice was steady, despite the terror coursing through me. "What do you want from me?" The night gave me no answer. But the next morning I found something that changed everything. When I examined the mitten in daylight, I noticed something I'd missed in the darkness. Tucked inside was a small piece of paper, folded until it was barely bigger than a postage stamp. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. written in pencil in handwriting that wasn't Emma's but somehow reminded me of her, were 3 words: "Remember the rocks." I didn't sleep that day. Couldn't. The note sat on my kitchen table while I circled it like it might spring to life and attack me. Remember the rocks. What did that mean? Emma collected rocks. She had dozens of them. Was someone telling me to look at her collection? Was this a clue or a cruel game? Detective Morrison came over within an hour of my call. She bagged the mitten and the note as evidence, and I watched her face carefully for any sign that she believed me, that she thought this meant Emma was alive. But Morrison was too good at her job to give me false hope. She said they'd test the mitten for DNA, trace any fibers, check the handwriting. Standard procedure. Her words, not mine. After she left, I went to Emma's room and looked at the rocks lined up on her windowsill. 37 stones, each one smooth and special in some way that only Emma understood. I picked up each one, examining it for hidden messages or clues. Nothing. They were just rocks. Beautiful, mundane rocks that my daughter had loved. I was so focused on the rocks that I almost missed it, the windowsill itself. Emma had arranged her rocks with care, always in same order, smallest to largest. But now they weren't. Someone had moved them. 3 rocks at the end of the row were out of sequence. A medium-sized quartz stone was where a large granite one should be, and vice versa. It was subtle, something only someone who'd seen this arrangement hundreds of times would notice. My pulse quickened. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the photos I'd taken of Emma's room in those first frantic days after she disappeared. I zoomed in on the windowsill. There. In the original photo, the rocks were in perfect order. Someone had been in this room and moved them. But who? The police had searched the house multiple times. Friends and family had been in and out. Or had someone else been here? At night, while I sat downstairs or dozed fitfully on the couch, had someone crept into my house and rearranged my daughter's rocks? The thought turned my blood to ice water. I checked every window, every door, all locked, all secure. But this house was old. David and I had bought it because it had character, which was a nice way of saying it had problems. The basement window had a faulty lock we'd been meaning to fix. The back door stuck and didn't always catch properly. Someone determined enough could get in. I should have called Detective Morrison back. I should have called the police. Instead, I did something crazy. I decided to wait. If someone was coming into my house, if someone was leaving me these signs, then I would be ready. I would catch them. I would make them tell me where Emma was. That night I prepared. I set up my phone to record the front door. I positioned myself in the living room with a clear view of the stairs, a baseball bat thin reach. I would not sleep. I would not blink. If someone knocked at 2:33 a.m., I would be ready. The hours crawled by. Midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m. I made coffee and paced the living room, checking my phone obsessively. At 2:30, I positioned myself at the bottom of the stairs, the bat gripped tight in my hands. Every muscle in my body was coiled, ready. 2:33 a.m. arrived. I held my breath. Silence. No knocking. Nothing. I waited, counting the seconds, then minutes. 5 minutes passed. 10. The knocking didn't come. I felt a crushing disappointment that made no sense. I'd been terrified of the knocking, and yet its absence felt worse. It felt like losing Emma all over again. But then I heard something else. A sound from upstairs. A soft scraping, like furniture being moved. My grip on the bat tightened. Someone was in Emma's room. I crept up the stairs, my heart thundering so loud I was sure whoever was up there could hear it. The hallway was dark except for the nightlight outside the bathroom. Emma's door was closed. I hadn't closed it. I never closed it. I reached for the knob, counted to 3 in my head, then threw the door open and hit the light switch. The room was empty, but the window was open. The same window that had been open the day Emma disappeared, and the rocks on the windowsill had been rearranged again. This time, 3 stones had been removed entirely and placed on Emma's bed, forming a small arrow pointing toward her closet. I approached the closet with the bat raised, ready to swing at whoever was hiding there. But when I yanked open the door, I found only Emma's clothes hanging neatly in a row. Except they weren't just clothes. Someone had arranged them to spell something. The arrangement was crude but deliberate. Using the colors and positions of Emma's dresses and shirts, someone had created a message. Look down. I looked down at the closet floor. Among Emma's scattered shoes and toys was something that didn't belong. A composition notebook with a purple cover, the kind elementary school kids use. My hands shook as I picked it up and opened it. The first page had Emma's name written in her careful second-grade handwriting, but the rest of the pages were filled with different handwriting. Neat, adult cursive that definitely wasn't Emma's. I started reading, and the world tilted sideways. It was a diary. But not Emma's diary, someone else's. Someone who had been watching Emma, watching us. The entries started 3 months before Emma disappeared, and they were meticulous. Details about our routine, about Emma's schedule, about her walks home from school, about me, my work schedule, my habits, my vulnerabilities. Whoever wrote this had studied us like a scientist studying specimens. But it was the final entry, dated the day Emma disappeared, that made my blood freeze. Today is the day. I've waited long enough. Emma is special. She deserves better than the half-life she's living in that house of grief. Her mother is drowning, pulling Emma down with her. I'm giving Emma what she needs, a fresh start, a new beginning. She'll understand eventually. They all do. By the time anyone finds this, we'll be far away. But I'll leave breadcrumbs for the mother. Not because I'm cruel, but because she needs to understand. She needs to see that Emma chose this, that Emma wants to be with someone who can give her a real childhood, not one haunted by a dead father and a mother who can't move on. The rocks will help her understand. Emma told me about the rocks, about how each one is a story. I'll tell her a new story now, one where she gets to be happy. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Someone had taken Emma because they thought they were saving her. Someone who knew about the rocks, who knew about David, who knew intimate details of our lives. Someone who had been close enough to learn all of this. A teacher, a neighbor, a parent from school. I flipped through the rest of the notebook frantically. There were pages of observations but no name, just the same neat handwriting documenting our lives like we were characters in a story they were writing. But there was something else, sketches, detailed drawings of places, a cabin in the woods, a lake, mountains in the background, and in the corner of one sketch, barely visible, was a sign, Timber Creek Lodge, mile marker 47. I knew that area. It was about 3 hours north, deep in the Cascade Mountains. David and I had talked about taking Emma there one summer, but we'd never made the trip. My phone was in my hand before I consciously decided to make the call, but I didn't dial Detective Morrison. Some instinct told me that if I brought the police now, if we went in with sirens and protocols, something bad would happen. Whoever had Emma believed they were doing the right thing. They were delusional, dangerous, but they thought they were saving her. If they felt cornered, if they thought they were going to lose Emma, I couldn't take that risk. This had to be me. I had to get to Emma first. I grabbed my car keys and the notebook. I didn't pack a bag, didn't change out of my sweatpants and t-shirt. I just ran. I was backing out of the driveway when Mrs. Chen's porch light came on. I saw her silhouette in the window, watching me leave at 3 a.m. Let her watch. Let her call the police if she wanted. I'd already be gone. The drive north was a blur of dark highway and mounting terror. What if I was wrong? What if this was another dead end? What if the notebook was planted by someone cruel who got off on tormenting grieving mothers? But I couldn't think like that. I had to believe. The alternative was unbearable. I reached Timber Creek Lodge as the sun was rising. It wasn't a lodge anymore. The wooden sign was faded and hanging at an angle. The building itself looked abandoned, windows dark, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. But there was a car there, a silver sedan covered in road dust. I parked and approached on foot, the baseball bat from my living room clutched in my hands. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the lobby was frozen in time, like someone had walked away mid-shift and never come back. Dust covered every surface. The smell of mildew and rot hung in the air. "Emma?" I called softly. My voice echoed in the empty space. Nothing. I moved deeper into the building, checking rooms one by one. Old hotel rooms with sagging beds and peeling wallpaper. A kitchen with ancient appliances. A dining room with tables set for guests who never came. Then I heard it. Upstairs. A child's laugh, quickly muffled. I took the stairs 2 at a time, following the sound to a room at the end of the hallway. The door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The room had been transformed. Clean. Bright. Decorated with fairy lights and colorful posters. A small bed with a pink comforter. Toys organized neatly on shelves. And there, sitting at a little table having a tea party with stuffed animals, was Emma. She looked up when I entered, and her eyes went wide. "Mama?" I dropped the bat. I was across the room in 2 strides, pulling her into my arms, sobbing into her hair. She was real, she was warm, she was here. I ran my hands over her, checking for injuries, for any sign that she'd been hurt. "Mama, you're squishing me," Emma said, but she was hugging me back just as tight. "Are you okay? Are you hurt? Did someone hurt you?" I pulled back to look at her face, searching for trauma, for fear, for anything that would tell me what she'd been through. Emma looked confused. "I'm okay. Sarah said you needed time to feel better, that we'd go back soon." "Sarah? Who's Sarah, baby? Where is she?" "I'm right here." I spun around, putting myself between Emma and the door. A woman stood in the doorway, 40-something, with kind eyes and a sad smile. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked like anyone, like a teacher or a librarian or someone's mom. She looked normal, and that somehow made it worse. "Sarah?" I didn't recognize her. "I know you don't remember me," she said, stepping into the room. I tensed, ready to grab Emma and run, but Sarah held up her hands. "I'm not going to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was trying to help." "You kidnapped my daughter." My voice was shaking with rage. "You took her from her home, from her life." "I took her from a house of ghosts," Sarah said, and there was genuine conviction in her voice. "I watched you, Amanda. For months I watched you drowning in grief. You were so lost after David died that you couldn't see what you were doing to Emma. She was sad all the time, quiet, withdrawn. She needed someone to help her be a kid again." "You don't get to decide that," I was screaming now. "You don't get to play God with people's lives." Emma was crying, clinging to my leg. "Mama, don't yell." Sarah's expression crumbled. "I know you can't understand now, but I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. Emma was so unhappy. And I know what it's like to grow up with a parent who can't be present because they're drowning in their own pain. My mother never recovered from my father's death. I spent my whole childhood trying to make her happy, trying to be enough to pull her out of her depression. It didn't work. It never works. I became invisible. I thought I was saving Emma from that fate. By stealing her? I held Emma tighter. By making me think she was dead? "I left you the clues," Sarah said desperately. "The knocking, the mitten, the rocks. I wanted you to find her. I wanted you to prove me wrong, to show that you could fight for her, that you weren't too far gone." "You're insane," I whispered. Sarah flinched like I'd slapped her. "Maybe, probably. I know that now. These 3 weeks, being here with Emma, talking to her, she talked about you constantly, about missing you, about Friday movie nights and Sunday pancakes, about the way you sing off-key in the car. She told me all the ways you were still there for her, still trying, even when you were sad. I started to realize I'd made a terrible mistake, that what I saw wasn't the whole picture. Then why didn't you bring her back?" "Because I was afraid," Sarah admitted. "Afraid of what I'd done, afraid of prison, afraid of facing the consequences of my delusion. But I was going to. I swear to you, Amanda, I was preparing to take her back. The knocking, the clues, I was trying to guide you here, to let you find her and take her home. I thought if you found her, if you rescued her, maybe it would make up for what I'd put you through. Maybe the story could have a different ending. I wanted to hate her. I should have hated her. But looking at her face, I saw something I recognized, a broken person who'd let their pain twist their reality. She was wrong, she was criminal, but she was also human." "Emma," I said, kneeling down to look my daughter in the eyes, "are you really okay? Did Sarah hurt you?" Emma shook her head. "She was nice to me, Mama. We did art projects and she taught me to braid hair. But I missed you so much. I wanted to come home every day. I cried a lot at night." I pulled her close again, and over her head I looked at Sarah. "I'm taking her home. And then I'm calling the police." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I won't run. I'll take responsibility for what I've done. I need you to know that I love her. In my own twisted way, I thought I was loving her by taking her. I know that doesn't make it right. I know sorry isn't enough, but I need you to know that she was safe. She was cared for. I never would have hurt her." I stood, lifting Emma into my arms even though she was getting too big for it. Loving someone means letting them make their own choices, even when choices hurt. Even when you think you know better. You didn't give Emma a choice. You didn't give me a choice. That's not love. That's possession. Sarah crumpled into a chair, her hands covering her face. I know, God help me, I know. I carried Emma out of that room, down the stairs, and out of that abandoned lodge. The morning sun was bright and warm on our faces. Emma buried her face in my shoulder, and I whispered promises into her hair, promises that I would never let her go again, that we would heal together, that it was okay to be sad about losing David, that grief was part of love, and we would carry it together without letting it drown us. When we reached my car, I called Detective Morrison. I told her everything, gave her the address, explained about Sarah. Morrison said she'd have units there within the hour, that I should take Emma to the hospital to get checked out, that we'd need to give statements. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted and overwhelmed. I watched her in the rearview mirror, my heart so full it hurt. She was here. She was safe. We had survived. But Sarah's words haunted me. Had I been drowning? Had I been so consumed by my own grief that I'd let Emma suffer? I thought about the months after David's death, the fog I'd been living in, going through the motions but not really present. Emma had been so quiet, so withdrawn. I'd noticed, but I'd told myself it was normal, that we were both adjusting. Had I been lying to myself? When we got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting on her porch. She ran over the moment she saw Emma, tears streaming down her face. Other neighbors emerged. Word spread fast. The missing girl was me. It was a miracle. Detective Morrison arrived with questions and compassion. The next few days were a whirlwind of medical exams, police interviews, therapy appointments, and media requests. Through it all, I held Emma close. We talked about what happened, not all at once, but in small conversations. She told me about the lodge, about Sarah, about being scared and confused, but also treated kindly. She told me she'd heard me calling for her the night she was taken, that she'd tried to call back, but Sarah had covered her mouth. She told me she'd left one of her mittens on purpose, hoping I'd find it. The rocks, I asked her one night as we sat in her room, both of us on her bed surrounded by her collection. Sarah said she understood about the rocks. Did you tell her about them? Emma nodded, looking guilty. She came to the park sometimes where I collected them. She'd ask about them, and I told her about the stories. About how you and I would make up stories together. I didn't know she was bad, Mama. She seemed nice. She was a broken person who made a terrible choice, I told Emma. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this was your fault. Are you still sad about Daddy? Emma asked in a small voice. The question broke my heart. Yes, I admitted. I'm still sad about Daddy. I'll probably always be a little sad about Daddy. But you know what I learned? Being sad about one thing doesn't mean I can't be happy about other things. I can be sad about losing Daddy and happy about having you. I can carry grief and joy at the same time. Does that make sense? Emma thought about it, then nodded. Like how rocks can be different colors, sad and happy mixed together. Exactly like that. I pulled her close. And I'm sorry if my sadness made you sad. If it made you feel like you had to take care of me or make me happy. That's not your job. Your job is to be 7 years old and collect rocks and make drawings and lose teeth and just be Emma. What's your job? Emma asked. My job is to love you and keep you safe and help you be the best Emma you can be, and I promise I'll do better at that. We'll do Friday movie nights and Sunday pancakes, and we'll also talk about our feelings, even the hard ones. Deal? Deal, Emma said, holding out her pinky. We pinky swore, and for the first time in months I felt something shift inside me. Sarah had been wrong about so many things, but she'd been right about one thing. I had been drowning. But I was also fighting, and now, with Emma home, I could fight better. We could fight together. Sarah went to prison. She pled guilty to kidnapping and served her sentence without complaint. I never visited her, though she wrote me letters that I never opened. Maybe one day I'd be ready to read them. Maybe not. For now, I focused on healing, on rebuilding our life, on showing Emma that love didn't mean possession, it meant freedom. Freedom to feel, to grieve, to be imperfect. Emma went back to school. She started therapy, so did I. We joined a support group for families who'd experienced loss. We made new friends and kept old ones. We planted a garden in the backyard in David's memory, and Emma arranged rocks around it like a border. Each rock had a story, she explained to visitors. This one was hope. This one was strength. This one was coming home. Every now and then, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about those knocks at 2:33 a.m. How terrifying they'd been. How desperate I'd felt. But in a strange way, they'd saved us. They'd pulled me out of my numbness, forced me to fight, to search, to refuse to give up. They'd led me back to Emma. Life wasn't perfect after that. We still had hard days. Emma had nightmares sometimes. I struggled with anxiety about letting her out of my sight. But we worked through it together. We learned that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. And some journeys you can't take alone. On the 1-year anniversary of Emma coming home, we went back to the park where she used to collect rocks. We found the smoothest, most beautiful stone we could, and we added it to her windowsill. This one, Emma decided, was called Forever Home, because she was home. We both were. And no matter what challenges came, we'd face them together. The rocks on her windowsill never moved again. There were no more knocks at 2:33 a.m. But sometimes, when I looked at Emma sleeping peacefully in her bed, her collection of stories lined up on the windowsill beside her, I'd remember that desperate, terrifying time and feel grateful. Grateful that I'd fought, grateful that she'd fought, grateful that we'd found our way back to each other, and grateful that even in our darkest moments, even when we're drowning in grief and fear, there's always a part of us that refuses to give up. That follows the clues, that chases the knocks in the night, that fights for the people we love. That part of us is unbreakable. That part of us is hope. And as long as we hold on to it, we can survive anything, even the nights when everything feels impossible, even when the knocking won't stop, even when we're lost in the dark and can't find our way home. Because home isn't a place. It's the people we love and who love us back. And when you've found that, when you've fought for it and held on to it through the worst storms, nothing can take it away. Not grief, not fear, not even the person who knocks at 2:33 a.m. and disappears into the darkness. Some mysteries don't need solving. Some questions don't need answers. Sometimes, the only thing that matters is that you survived, that you kept fighting, that you made it home. And Emma and I, we were finally truly home.